Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. Coming up in the next hour, India forecasts 7.4% economic growth rate, above the government's initial projection of 6.8%. Prime Minister Modi discusses counter-terror cooperation and regional issues with his Israeli counterpart. The US seizes Russian-flagged oil tanker in the North Atlantic after Moscow sends a submarine to escort it. And US President Trump mulls options to annex Greenland. Denmark warns it will destroy NATO alliance. India on Wednesday projected an economic growth of 7.4% in 2025-26 fiscal, underscoring resilience in Asia's third largest economy even as global growth slows. The data released by the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation on Wednesday, including the gross domestic product growth projections as part of the first advanced estimates, will undergo revision through the year. The data also revealed that real gross value added is expected to expand by 7.3% in 2026, up from 6.4% in 2025. The economy continued to expand at a faster than anticipated rate in July-September, with GDP growth rising to a six-quarter high of 8.2% on the back of near double-digit growth in the services sector. The manufacturing sector too has clocked its fastest pace of expansion in 6 quarters. And reacting to the GDP numbers, Prime Minister Modi said on X that India's Reform Express continues to gain momentum. This, he says, is powered by the NDA government's comprehensive investment push and demand-led policies. Be it infrastructure, manufacturing incentives, digital public goods, or ease of doing business, the government is working to realize our dream of a prosperous India, he said. And my colleague Mark Lane now joins us for more. Mark, despite Trump's tariffs and other disruptive moves and an unresolved Ukraine-Russia conflict, how does India still remain in the Goldilocks zone?
Well, Ramesh, part of the reason is that India has, implemented very strong policies that have helped the economy to sustain itself. Each sector has been ably been, held afloat by domestic demand. And domestic demand has been pushed largely by government incentives. We've seen that through budget interventions, and through the year there have been reforms in the form of GST reforms, incentives given in the earlier budget of last year. Apart from that, the digitalization of the Indian economy has helped in improving the speed of transactions and has helped in greater resilience in terms of the confidence that each sector holds in terms of trade. There has been a diversification of trade. Initially, we can see that the Indian economy has been held up because it has looked inward. We've seen that services has been a very strong driver of growth, 9.9%, growing nearly at 10%. And services largely is driven by the fact that digitalization has taken place. I mean, a lot of this has smoothened the improvement of services, and as a result of that, we are seeing that has had a spillover effect in terms of increasing consumption demand for the people who are involved in the services sector. That has helped sustain the Indian economy. And India, even though it has been producing for the domestic market, has also been, in a way, been able to see new markets for its exports. So that's how India has sort of remained in the Goldilocks zone.
Now, how do these latest estimates help the finance minister in terms of annual budget preps?
Indeed, Ramesh, what we can see clearly is that the finance minister will take, will be happy with these figures, because she's going to be able to see where she can raise revenues. The tax to GDP ratio is an important component in understanding where revenues can be raised and what level of revenues is generated, both in terms of GST as well as in terms of corporate tax and income tax. We can see that growth in the economy implies that the government can mop up greater revenues. That would give the government sufficient cushion to think big in terms of its expenditure, and hence she can think big in terms of supporting the increase in investments in the economy, because the government is leading in that direction in terms of creating infrastructure and a multiplier effect. One of the factors why I didn't mention that in the last answer is why the Indian economy has sustained its growth is because gross capital formation, which is another word for investment, has been growing. It is coming in at 7.8%, which is a significant, it's growing at a significant pace, which implies that the money that is being put into the economy is stable enough to generate more growth and more further increase the virtuous cycle of investment.
And looking ahead, Mark, what kind of other challenges and opportunities are emerging on the horizon which India will need to navigate to either continue or even take its growth momentum in the 8% and plus zone?
So I would think that the economy is tied to the world economy, but the world economy, as we know, is currently in a situation which is can be described as a situation of flux. This kind of turbulence will continue, and India is obviously going to be affected by it. But India can't, only be propped up by the domestic market, because the domestic demand is huge. In fact, everyone is interested in India's domestic market, and that's why we are in a position to negotiate good trade deals with other countries, as we have been doing with FTAs, as we have seen in the recent past, and which will continue again in the coming year. But one of the concerns will be that this turbulence will continue, and we need to be worried about the external sector, and there would be opportunities obviously there, and we can see that this will all be looked at very carefully by the finance minister in her budget on the 1st of February. We can see the direction, how this will be gauged, the turbulence, because obviously everyone is tracking the world economy quite closely.
Indeed. All right, we'll leave it there for now. Mark, thank you. My colleague Mark Ling reporting there on the latest GDP numbers. Right, moving on, Prime Minister Modi has spoken to his Israeli counterpart Benjamin Netanyahu. The Prime Minister received a telephone call from Mr. Netanyahu on Wednesday. They exchanged New Year greetings and wished the people of both countries peace and prosperity. They identified shared priorities to further strengthen the India-Israel strategic partnership in the year ahead, guided by shared democratic values, deep mutual trust, and a forward-looking vision. They reiterated a zero-tolerance approach towards terrorism in all its forms and manifestations, and reaffirmed their commitment to fight this menace. Mr. Netanyahu briefed Prime Minister Modi on the implementation of the Gaza peace plan. The Prime Minister reaffirmed India's consistent support for efforts towards a just and durable peace in the region. They exchanged views on regional and global issues of mutual interest as well. The two leaders agreed to remain in touch. India is stepping up its diplomatic engagement in Europe with External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar in Luxembourg as part of efforts to deepen strategic and economic partnerships. The visit underlines India's focus on strengthening ties with key European partners while advancing cooperation in emerging and future-oriented sectors.
India's engagement with Europe gained further momentum as External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar concluded his visit to Luxembourg, underscoring the expanding scope of bilateral cooperation. Interacting with members of the Indian community, Jaishankar highlighted the significant deepening of India-Luxembourg ties across political engagement, business collaboration, and emerging technology domains. On regional security issues, the External Affairs Minister described India's relationship with Pakistan as an exception, citing Islamabad's long-standing and open support for terrorism.
For us, the relationship with Pakistan is exceptional, because if you look at the world, I mean, forget for a moment this is, our region. Show me in the world in this day and age any country which actually has pursued the kind of policies which Pakistan has against its neighbor. That for decades, you had these training camps, not secret training camps, they're all training camps in the big cities of Pakistan, very open, where the state, the military supports terrorism, and they've tried to normalize it as though it's their right to do it.
The visit also included talks with Luxembourg's Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Xavier Bettel, with discussions focusing on finance, investments, digital cooperation, artificial intelligence, space, talent mobility, and the further strengthening of India-EU relations.
A very solid trade account that we have. I think many of the interesting issues of our times, fintech, space, the entire digital world, AI, these are all issues where I think we can collaborate much more profitably than we've done.
Jaishankar also met Grand Duke Guillaume of Luxembourg, conveying warm greetings from President Draupadi Murmu and appreciating his positive sentiments towards India and the shared commitment to deepen the bilateral partnership. With high-level engagements spanning leadership interactions, diaspora outreach, and wide-ranging discussions on global and regional issues, the visit reflects India's sustained push to broaden its footprint in Europe and reinforce its partnership with Luxembourg and the European Union. Bureau Report, DD India.
Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal on Wednesday met with Liechtenstein's Prime Minister Brigitte Haas. They discussed about strengthening economic and investment ties with a focus on a free trade pact between India and the European Free Trade Association to boost investment flows, manufacturing growth and job creation, resulting in mutual prosperity for both nations. They also exchanged views on cooperation in industry-academia linkages. Minister Goyal called on Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs Sabine Mononi. They discussed opportunities for trade expansion, innovation and clean tech, and explored ways to deepen mutually beneficial ties, especially after the operationalization of a free trade pact between India and the European Free Trade Association. Earlier, Minister Goyal called on hereditary Prince Alois of Liechtenstein. He handed over a letter from Prime Minister Modi inviting the Prince to attend the India AI Impact Summit, which will be held in New Delhi in February. And still to come on DD India News Hour. Chief of Defence Staff General Anil Chauhan delivers the Lieutenant General S.K. Sinha Memorial Lecture. And find out how India's clean mobility transition is getting a major policy boost.
Can the US launch a bombing campaign against Iran? The Philippines vessel suffered structural damage. This saga of child sexual abuse is the United States China's debt trap strategy. Truth is stranger than fiction. But sometimes hard to uncover. Trust us to tell the truth, unadulterated and pure, of every story that matters to you.
Exactly what you say that you're.
You read between the lines, cut the clutter, and connect the dots to get you the full picture. Watch Connecting the dots at these times with me, only on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. General Upendra Dwivedi, the Chief of Army Staff of India, reviewed the Guard of Honor at the Sri Lanka Army Headquarters, Colombo. The Army Chief interacted with Lieutenant General BKGM Lasanta Rodrigo, the commander of the Sri Lanka Army. The deliberations centered on further strengthening bilateral defense cooperation, deepening military-to-military ties, and reaffirming the shared commitment of both nations to regional peace and security. On the occasion, military vehicles, ambulances, and training simulators were also handed over, further reinforcing defense cooperation and the enduring bonds of friendship between the two nations. A memorial lecture remembering Lieutenant General S.K. Sinha was held in New Delhi on Wednesday. The Chief of Defence Staff, General Anil Chauhan, paid rich tribute to the late Vice Chief of Army Staff. General Chauhan spoke on the nature of modern warfare. He underlined the need for scholar officers in the armed forces.
Today, as warfare grows increasingly complex, spanning space, cyber, information, and the cognitive domain, the need for scholar soldiers and thinking generals is far more than before. Today, even the basic building blocks which I just spoke about, what constitutes a nation state, that are being challenged. The concept of sovereignty, the concept of nation state, that is being challenged. Even diplomacy is under strain. That brings forth the point that there is more need for thinking generals to be there.
India's clean mobility transition gets major policy boost. The Petroleum and Natural Gas Regulatory Board, along with gas distribution and entities, has announced the launch of a landmark study on comparative assessment of vehicular fuels in India's energy transition. The study will be conducted by the New Delhi-based The Energy and Resources Institute, which will evaluate EVs, natural gas, petrol and diesel across technical, environmental and economic parameters.
Only thing we can do is, first of all, guide them what is cleaner, how to go about it, what is the advantage, and somewhere also suggest to the government for the policy decision, because ultimately it is not just air pollution. Air pollution is connected to your and my health. So I have to look at the health burden as well. I have to look at the road infrastructure, because if it prevents congestion, then also the emissions are going to reduce.
Air quality in urban centers continues to challenge policymakers and administrators. Now we have CGD bid out across the country, and almost 1.4 lakh crore rupees has been invested by GAIL and other pipeline entities as well as the CGD people. So we are driving that agenda, setting up of more CNG stations.
On the fourth day of this European tour, External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar met with his French counterpart Noël Barrot in Paris on Wednesday. This being Minister Jaishankar's first visit of 2026, the meeting takes on added significance as it sets the tone for India's diplomatic engagements in the new year. The interaction comes at the start of the Year of Innovation, emphasizing new ideas, collaboration and forward-looking initiatives. The talks reflected a shared interest in strengthening ties and exploring opportunities for cooperation across multiple areas. The engagement also highlights India's commitment to active dialogue with international partners and its focus on innovation-led initiatives this year. This engagement enhancing mutual understanding and opening avenues for joint initiatives. The discussions are expected to contribute to broader efforts in building stronger partnerships and exploring innovative approaches to global challenges.
Important moment for the relationship between France and India, but also in the EU and India a few days ahead of an important summit where significant agreements will be signed. I look forward to these discussions today that aim at strengthening and furthering our relationship this year, where India will be chairing the BRICS and France will be chairing the G7.
France is amongst our oldest strategic partner, the first in Europe. And I believe, Minister, that our continuous conversation is an important part of nurturing that relationship. Now, our particular meeting takes place in the larger context of considerable global uncertainty. And in such a situation, it is natural that strategic partners consult very closely. We must and we are making full use of the various mechanisms we have in different domains. We've just had a very productive exchange of views on global and regional issues. So I'm very confident that the session we're going to have on bilateral cooperation will take forward our wide-ranging agenda, perhaps generate new ideas how to implement Horizon 2047 roadmap. As you noted, apart from our bilateral ties, we are both very active in the international arena. So as two nations committed to multipolarity, I believe that our working together is important for ourselves, also for stabilizing the global politics at this stage.
Tensions in Yemen have reached a new level. A Saudi Arabia-led coalition has launched airstrikes on Al-Daleh, the home province of separatist leader Aidarus al-Zubaydi, deepening divisions between Riyadh and Abu Dhabi. The confrontation is now testing not only Yemen's fragile leadership, but also the alliance between Saudi Arabia and the UAE. DD India's Rahul Upadhyay brings us more.
Tensions in Yemen have escalated sharply as a Saudi-led coalition targeted the home province of a separatist leader, deepening the rift between Riyadh and Abu Dhabi. On Wednesday, coalition warplanes struck Al-Daleh, the stronghold of Aidarus al-Zubaydi, head of the UAE-backed Southern Transitional Council. The move came after al-Zubaydi skipped crisis talks in Riyadh and was expelled from Yemen's Presidential Leadership Council, accused of high treason. The coalition said it had given al-Zubaydi a 48-hour ultimatum to attend discussions following the STC's territorial gains last month. But when he failed to board the flight with his delegation, the coalition accused him of mobilizing forces in Al-Daleh and launched air raids. The STC insists its leader remains in Aden, overseeing military and security operations. The group claims it has lost contact with its delegation in Riyadh and has urged Saudi authorities to guarantee their safety. Meanwhile, Council Chairman Rashad Al-Alimi and other members met in Riyadh to assess the crisis. The strikes have already claimed civilian lives. At least 4 people were killed in Wednesday's raids, raising fears that violence could spill into Aden, Yemen's second city. The confrontation has not only shaken Yemen's fragile leadership, but also strained ties between Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. Rahul Upadhyay's report for DD India.
U.S. forces have seized a Venezuelan oil tanker in the North Atlantic after it evaded a partial blockade around Venezuela. U.S. officials say that the tanker is part of a so-called shadow fleet that has carried oil for countries such as Venezuela, Russia and Iran in violation of U.S. sanctions. The developments are the latest in U.S. President Trump's crackdown on sanctioned oil tankers going to and from Venezuela. Satellite imagery captured show the Russian-flagged Venezuela-linked tanker named Marinera as the U.S. reportedly pursued to seize the vessel. The vessel has been pursued since December. Russian naval assets, including a submarine, were reported near the ship during the chase. The Kremlin described and criticized what it called disproportionate U.S. attention on the vessel. The seizure follows President Trump's announcement that Venezuela will transfer up to 50 million barrels of oil to the U.S. Several other sanctioned tankers have recently reflagged under the Russian flag, raising further tensions. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has urged Western allies to give clear, legally binding security guarantees to deter future Russian aggression. The Ukrainian leader on Wednesday said that he had still not received a clear answer from Ukraine's partners on what their response to a Russian attack on his country would be.
If there is aggression again, all partners will give a strong response to the Russians. And I'm asking this very question to all our partners, and I have not received a clear, unambiguous answer yet.
Meanwhile, President Zelensky met with President Nikos Christodoulides of Cyprus in Nicosia. Christodoulides formally assumed the rotating presidency of the European Union on Wednesday. At the meeting, Cyprus reaffirmed that it will work actively to ensure the EU's support for Ukraine remains strong, united and unwavering. Later, Christodoulides hosted a quadrilateral meeting with Ukraine's President Zelensky, the President of the European Council and the President of the European Commission to discuss the latest developments in the Ukraine war and efforts towards lasting peace. Cyprus's president said that supporting Ukraine's sovereignty, independence and territorial integrity is a top priority for the nation. Still to come on DD India News Hour. A discussion on US designs on Greenland and the implications for transatlantic unity.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy, always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. In supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the economic brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. A quick recap of the headlines. India forecasts 7.4% economic growth rate, above the government's initial projection of 6.8%. Prime Minister Modi discusses counter-terror cooperation and regional issues with his Israeli counterpart. The US seizes Russian-flagged oil tanker in the North Atlantic after Moscow sends a submarine to escort it. And US President Trump mulls options to annex Greenland. Denmark warns it will destroy NATO alliance. Right, US President Trump is escalating his push to acquire Greenland, with the White House confirming discussions of options including military action. Despite a warning from Denmark that an attack would spell the end of NATO, President Trump is repeating his insistence to take control of Greenland. And this has sparked outrage across Europe, with leaders of Britain, France, Germany, Italy, Poland and Spain rallying behind the Arctic territory. Switzerland has said that any change to Greenland's status requires the consent of both Denmark and Greenland. Here are more details.
The White House has announced that President Donald Trump is actively considering a range of options to acquire Greenland, explicitly stating that military action remains always an option. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt emphasized that securing Greenland represents a critical national security imperative for the United States, which is essential for countering the growing influence of Russia and China in the Arctic region. After the US military captured Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro last weekend, President Trump has renewed his long-standing interest in Greenland, and he wants to expand US access and insists on full control. The announcement has provoked swift and unified condemnation from European allies, straining relations within NATO. Allies including France and Germany are working closely on a plan on how to respond should the United States act on its threat to take over Greenland. French Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot on Wednesday said that he believed the United States was committed to NATO, but he suggested European leaders were prepared to strike back against potential US intimidation. Denmark has warned any move to take Greenland by force would mean everything would stop, including NATO and 80 years of close transatlantic security links.
Greenland has never been for sale and never will be for sale. So nothing has changed from the Greenlandic side. And of course, we can see that US is trying to say that they won't rule out to annex our country, and they're also interested in getting our country in other ways. But it's not interesting for us.
Greenland's value lies in its location within the Arctic Circle and its vast reserves of rare earth minerals. The melting ice in the Arctic Circle is opening new shipping routes for global trade, while the island's abundance of mineral resources are critical for modern technology and is drawing international attention. This has placed Greenland at the center of strategic rivalry among major powers. President Trump has reiterated his intention of taking over Greenland for national security reasons. The US military maintains a permanent presence at an air base in northwest Greenland under a 1951 agreement granting freedom to build bases with Danish and Greenlandic notification. The shortest route from Europe to North America runs via Greenland, making it important for the US ballistic missile early warning system. Greenland sits at geopolitical crossroads amid Arctic militarization by NATO, Russia, and China. The US wants to expand its military footprint. Greenland's leadership maintains that the island's future will be decided by its people. However, Trump's repeated remarks have reignited concerns over sovereignty and the broader framework of international law. Bureau Report, DD India.
Meanwhile, a day after the White House said that it was not ruling out military intervention to acquire Greenland, President Trump wrote on social media platform Truth Social that he doubted allies would be there for us if we really needed them. He added that we will always be there for NATO even if they won't be there for us. In his post, President Trump repeated his frequent assertion that many members of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization had failed to meet military spending commitments until he intervened, but also emphasized that the NATO member countries are all my friends. He highlighted that Russia and China have zero fear of NATO without the US as part of the alliance. And joining us is Ambassador J.S. Mukul to walk us through the implications of the Greenland developments. He is a former Indian envoy to Oman and the Netherlands. Ambassador Mukul, welcome to DD India News Hour. Now, President Trump seems to suggest that annexing Greenland is a national security priority. Do you think it's a bogey or a genuine demand?
Well, good evening and thank you for having me.
Welcome.
I think it's the most bizarre thing that one can ever imagine. A country wanting to swallow up another sovereign country. In this case, an ally, ally in the NATO. So
Right.
I think it's the most bizarre situation. Obviously, in all such matters, it is a combination of issues. Yes, there may be strategic reasons that the United States thinks that Greenland is important. They have already stated clearly that it is a foreign policy goal and a national security priority for them because of the waterways, etc., and the proximity and the geostrategic location. But also, one should not forget that particularly coming as this development does soon after the last weekend's developments in Venezuela, the oil-related aspects there, there is also Greenland is very rich in mineral resources of all kinds, of natural resources, rare earths, etc. So what is exactly the motivation? It's difficult to say, but obviously it's a combination of all these. But I would only again like to emphasize the fact that while we are used to American exceptionalism over the years and decades, but I think this goes beyond exceptionalism. This is pure expansionism. That's all I can think about. And if it is linked beyond security to the raw materials and the minerals, then it's also a form of imperialism.
Absolutely. Now, Trump also says that Greenland is, quote, covered with Russian and Chinese ships. He also says that Denmark is not able to properly secure the territory. Is it true? Do you buy his argument?
You see, the United States is the one which has a base there already. And as per the agreement and among NATO allies, I mean, the United States could set up any number of bases if it was really security considerations that are bothering them. I don't think Denmark is going to object to more bases or more, of the NATO allies, either Denmark or Greenland. So, I mean, this thing doesn't, in my view, doesn't really, cut much ice, because the security is there. And not only that, I mean, the way he said it, I mean, it was quite insulting and demeaning, saying that the Danish have added one more dog sled in terms of the security. I mean, this is not the way. This is not diplomacy at all. This is just antithesis of anything diplomatic. But anyway, I think we have already moved beyond diplomatic niceties in the case of the United States. So I think I don't particularly buy that argument, because if there is a genuine concern, the United States and its allies, NATO allies, can all combine, join together and take countermeasures, including enhanced location of equipment, forces, bases, etc.
Indeed, and since you refer to NATO, Ambassador, Denmark says that the US move on Greenland will destroy NATO. So I'm wondering, is Trump willing to risk collapse of NATO for the sake of Greenland?
You see, one has to see this in context and perspective. Trump has never been very fond of NATO, if I recall his earlier statements. In fact, NATO is a greater requirement for the Europeans. In fact, they are desperate that the United States should remain and the NATO should remain in Europe. So it is in that sense difficult to understand. While this could of course be a Danish perspective, because Denmark and Greenland are the directly affected parties. But I don't think in the joint statement which was issued by other major European powers, they questioned the future of NATO. So I think that is more, in the nature of rhetoric, saying that NATO, but certainly it will be a big setback in terms of the NATO provisions if one NATO power gobbles up another ally.
Conversely, Ambassador, European leaders have made the right noises, as it were, in support of Denmark, but will they risk alienating a NATO ally in the US for the sake of Greenland?
That remains to be seen. I would think they would, my personal guess would be that there would be criticism if the US went ahead with the occupation or annexation of Greenland. There would be strong condemnation, criticism, but I would think at the end of the day they would stop short of destroying NATO.
Now, some say that the US captured Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro in violation of international law. Similarly, will a US annexation of Greenland violate international law?
No, absolutely. I mean, but I think by now we should understand that US is the last sort of country which is bothered about international law or the UN Charter and things like that. So I think, yes, while the answer to your question is obviously a strong affirmative yes, but I don't think the US in its present, in the present state is least concerned about international law, violation of international law, violation of UN Charter, in this case even violation of NATO provisions.
Indeed. Now, if we pause here for a moment, Ambassador, and take a step back and look at the world map as a whole, what precedent do you think will Trump's move on Venezuela and possibly Greenland set? Will it have any implications, for instance, for Taiwan?
Well, it's difficult to say what implications it will have directly for Taiwan, but certainly it's a big setback in the rules-based international order, because if the number one superpower of today is completely abandoning international law and the UN Charter, yes, it could encourage others to do likewise. Now, what will each of the other countries, how will they understand, interpret this and take action? That, of course, is difficult to speculate.
And finally, Ambassador, does India have a skin in the game? Possibly not, but does New Delhi have a view on the future of Greenland, for instance, and what would that be?
Well, again, I don't want to be sure. Speculating, but I think we will certainly be very concerned, because again, India follows the international law, follows the UN Charter, and we have been strong adherents to that. So obviously, that would not be something that we would like. But what will be our response and reaction will remain to be seen.
All right, Ambassador Mukul, thank you for joining us and sharing your thoughts and perspectives with our viewers at home and abroad. Thank you so much for your time. Much appreciated. And still to come on DD India News Hour. Indian middle distance runner and Asian Games gold winner Jinson Johnson announces his retirement. And remembering actor Irrfan Khan on his birth anniversary. Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. Right, we now tell you about an event held in Gandhinagar, the capital of the western Indian state of Gujarat, that promotes organ donation ahead of Deputy Chief Minister Harsh Sanghvi's birthday.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi has been spearheading efforts for a long time to raise public awareness about the importance of organ donation in the country. As part of this initiative, a special program was organized at the Circuit House in Gandhinagar on Wednesday, a day ahead of the birthday of Gujarat Deputy Chief Minister Harsh Sanghvi. On the occasion, 300 nursing college students flew kites and released balloons carrying the message Angadan Mahadan, meaning organ donation is the greatest donation. The students also extended birthday greetings to the Deputy Chief Minister.
આવતીકાલે આપણા માનનીય ઉપમુખ્યમંત્રી શ્રી હર્ષભાઈ સંઘવીનો જન્મદિવસ છે. હું છેલ્લા 6 વર્ષથી સતત અંગદાન જાગૃતિનું કામ કરી રહ્યો છું અને દરેક પ્રસંગે અંગદાનનો મેસેજ મળી જાય એટલે એમના જન્મદિવસ નિમિત્તે આજે એમના હસ્તે નર્સિંગના સ્ટુડન્ટ્સને સરસ પતંગ વિતરણ કરીને અમે આ અંગદાન મહાદાનનો મેસેજ સમાજમાં જાય. આજે પણ આપણે ત્યાં અનેક લોકો અંગોની પ્રતીક્ષામાં મોતને ભેટે છે, અનેક લોકો મોતનો ઇંતજાર કરે છે. આપણા જ દેશ બાંધવોનો મોતનો ઇંતજાર સમાપ્ત થાય એટલા માટે અંગદાનનું આપણે કામ કરી રહ્યા છે.
Kites carrying the message of Angadan Mahadan were distributed during the program organized on the initiative of social activist Dilip Deshmukh. Deshmukh said he had been running a sustained awareness campaign on organ donation for the past 6 years.
And next we tell you about a walkathon that was held in Vijayawada to promote road safety awareness.
Several students and residents of Vijayawada took part in a walkathon held on Wednesday to promote road safety awareness. The walkathon was part of the National Road Safety Awareness Month campaign organized by the Andhra Pradesh Transport Department. The event was inaugurated by senior officials who stressed the importance of public participation in following road safety rules.
A month-long campaign on road safety measures and road safety enforcement in the entire district. We have started a campaign on January 1st. In the entire January month, we will be creating awareness on the road safety and the rules and regulations and the traffic rules among the citizens, among the youths and among the public to ensure that everybody who comes out for their some various works should go back safely without any hurts and injuries and without any accidents on the roads. So in this direction, we are creating awareness in all the schools and colleges and all the public places and all the drivers, taxi drivers and also the bike drivers to ensure that everybody should follow the traffic rules.
The initiative aims to reduce road accidents and promote safe driving practices, including strict adherence to helmet use by two-wheeler riders.
And now to all the news from the world of sport. Asian Games gold-winning Indian middle distance runner Jinson Johnson announced his retirement after a 15-year-long career. The 34-year-old athlete from Kerala has not competed since winning a 1500-meter bronze in the 2023 Asian Games in China. His best moment was winning the 1500-meter gold in the 2018 Asian Games in Jakarta. He also won a silver in the 800-meter in the same games. Johnson also won the silver and bronze medals at the 2015 and 2017 Asian Athletics Championships. The athlete qualified for the men's 800-meter event at the 2016 Olympics but finished 5th, missing out on a place in the semi-finals. His participation at the 2016 Rio Games made him the first Indian male runner to qualify for the 800-meter event at the Olympics since Sriram Singh in 1980. The ICC T20 World Cup trophy was displayed for public viewing in Kathmandu, Nepal on Wednesday. The trophy, which is on a tour of Nepal, was kept at the Bauddha Stupa, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Nepal's President Ramchandra Podel said that the advent of the trophy in Nepal was a proud moment for the country. He thanked the International Cricket Council, saying that the visit has significantly boosted enthusiasm among cricket fans. Rohit Podel will lead a 15-member Nepal squad in the World Cup, which will be held in India and Sri Lanka next month. Kane Russell struck a hat-trick as HIL Governing Council defeated Shrachi Bengal Tigers 6-3 in a high-scoring Hockey India League clash in Chennai on Wednesday. Shrachi Bengal Tigers took the lead after captain Jugraj Singh converted a penalty stroke. But Governing Council turned the game on its head with 2 quick goals. In the 38th minute, the Governing Council secured a 3-goal advantage. However, Shrachi Bengal Tigers refused to back down, scoring 2 quick goals in the 40th minute to reduce the deficit. But James Albury showcased brilliant skill to get past Tigers' backline and tap the ball into the empty net as Governing Council won the encounter 6-3. Jacob Bethel slammed a maiden Test century as England built a tenuous 119-run lead against Australia to leave the 5th and final Ashes Test on a knife edge in Sydney. The tourists were 302 runs for the loss of 8 wickets, with Bethel not out on 142 and Matthew Potts yet to score at stumps on day 4. 22-year-old Bethel saved the day after Zach Crawley and veteran Joe Root fell cheaply, powering to his 100 in style of 162 balls. But wickets stumbled around him with Harry Brook and Will Jacks removed in the space of 3 balls by Bo Webster after Bethel reached the landmark. England are desperate for another morale-boosting win after victory in the previous test in Melbourne. Australia lead 3-1 and have already retained the Ashes. Coco Gauff pulled off a double duty to drag defending champions US into the United Cup semi-finals in Perth on Wednesday. Fourth-ranked Gauff secured a 6-3, 6-2 win over Maria Sakkari of Greece. But Stefanos Tsitsipas brought Greece level by defeating Taylor Fritz 6-4, 7-5. In the deciding mixed doubles, Gauff teamed up with Christian Harrison to battle past Tsitsipas and Sakkari. Poland will play host Australia, with the winner facing the US for a place in Sunday's final. The mixed team United Cup features 18 teams and serves as a build-up towards the Australian Open, which starts on 18th January. Wednesday marks the 59th birth anniversary of Indian actor Irrfan Khan. One of Indian cinema's finest actors, Khan carved a unique space for himself with performances that were subtle, powerful and deeply human. From parallel cinema to Hollywood, his work crossed borders and touched audiences worldwide. Deeptanshu Kashyap takes a look at the life, legacy and lasting impact of Irrfan Khan.
One of Indian cinema's most distinctive and internationally respected actors, Irrfan Khan was known for his quiet intensity, emotional depth and an ability to bring extraordinary realism to ordinary lives. Across Indian, British and American cinema, his performances stood apart for their restraint and honesty, making him a rare artist whose work transcended language and political borders. Born Sahabzade Irrfan Ali Khan on January 7, 1967 in Jaipur, Rajasthan, he came from a Pashto-speaking Muslim family. A talented cricketer in his youth, Irrfan was selected for the C.K. Naidu tournament but could not attend due to lack of funds. It proved to be a turning point in his life that led him towards acting. In 1984, he earned a scholarship to the National School of Drama in New Delhi. After early struggles, which included nearly a decade in television, his film career began with a small role in Salaam Bombay. Acclaimed performances in The Warrior, Hasil and Maqbool cemented his place as one of the best actors in India. His other notable movies include Life in a Metro, Pan Singh Tomar, The Lunchbox, Hindi Medium, Talwar and Haider. International recognition followed with films such as The Namesake, Slumdog Millionaire, Life of Pi and The Amazing Spider-Man. His honors include National Film Award for the Best Actor for Pan Singh Tomar, multiple Filmfare Awards and Padma Shri in 2011. Diagnosed with a neuroendocrine tumor in 2018, Irrfan continued to act with quiet grace and courage. He made his final appearances in Karwan and Angrezi Medium before passing away on April 29, 2020 at the age of 53, leaving behind a legacy of performances that continue to move, challenge and inspire. Deeptanshu Kashyap's report for DD India.
And that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour. You can get the latest news on the DD India mobile app on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code to download it. And we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. From all of us here in New Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.